a question about the difference in the handling with and without the tour pack. The first time I rode a bike that was fully dressed like this, with a tour pack and bags and lower fairings and everything, was when I started working at this job. It was a Harley Davidson Jack Daniels edition, ultra limited CVO. I think he's a regular customer. We see his bike for maintenance on a regular basis and whatever else it needs. But expensive bike, heavy bike, and I was a little bit terrified to ride it because it was the first time I'd ridden a bike with a tour pack, and it was the first time I'd ridden a bike with lower fairings. And I was afraid it was going to be heavy and handle poorly, and I was scared I was going to drop it because up till that point I had ridden whatever else had come in, but we just hadn't happened to have seen a full dressed bagger like that yet. So I'd ridden my own bikes. I didn't have this bike yet, and I'd ridden a bunch of Road Kings and Softails and stuff, and I was really surprised when I rode that bike that the tour pack made no difference in the handling. I didn't even notice it back there once I got over being nervous. And it's the same on this one. I don't even notice that tour pack back there. It makes no difference in the handling. I think once you get past the idea that it's going to be top heavy and find out that it really isn't, you won't even notice it back there. You won't give it a second thought. It really doesn't handle any different as long as the preload's set right. Alright, good morning YouTube. I've got the shop all set up. I'm going to make a little video to show how to remove the tour pack. So to remove the tour pack on the Pursuit, see if I can get this framed up good, you have to remove your side covers. So right about here, you want to pull at the front, and then down at the bottom, and there's another one in the back up at the top. You just have these three little posts that fit in a grommet and hold the side covers on. I've got the shop set up with towels to lay things on so nothing gets scratched, and that's probably a good place to start as well. So back to this side. Hope that's in frame. And this side is pretty much the same thing. Right about the middle on the front. Just gently remove that. And we have to remove the side covers because we have to remove the seat. I'm not going to totally remove the bags, but if you choose to, you'll need to unplug your bags, and the plugs are under the side covers. I've got an extra plug because I've got the bag lights on mine. And on this side, your plugs for the bag are over here. I hope that's in frame. So mine would be these two. And we need a 6mm hex to remove these. Holy crap, those shouldn't be that tight. says it's a quick release trunk, and it is, but there's really not much quick about taking it off and putting it back on. That's why I'm making this video. I'm just going to let this tip out a little bit, because there's a bolt. I hope you can see it. There's a bolt that holds your quick release levers in place. So we're going to undo that bolt and drop it right on the floor. That's perfect. Found the bolt. Now these little spools are supposed to have a little rubber cap that holds them, and this one is missing. That might have something to do with my bag leak, because it's probably warping the bag a little bit. And then I'm just going to loosely thread these back in. I'm only putting these in loosely now because I'm going to put the trunk right back on at the end of this video, and I'm not going to run with it off at all. But if I was going to ride around with the trunk off, I would tighten those now. So, same thing on the other side. Pop this open. Holy shit. Ow. That was way too tight. Those aren't supposed to be that tight. And like I said, these are a 6mm. Yeah, this has two rubber grommets, and the other side only has one. And this one is a 5mm. I'll try not to drop this one. Now, if you choose to take these bolts and leave them out so that you can more quickly and easily remove your trunk, that's up to you. But I know that to replace this entire tour pack with the backrest, the bracket, the speakers, the antenna, and the lights and everything, you're looking at somewhere around $5,000. And without those little bolts in there, it takes about 30 seconds to pop this trunk off and walk away with it. And apparently that's a pretty common thing in places like California. So I do not recommend that you leave the bolts out. That's up to you. And again, I'm just going to leave those loose because I am going to put the thing back on. So now, We can flip our levers up. And we can just lift the back of the trunk until she pops up. Now I'm going to slide this in here so I don't scratch my fender. And under here, I've got 2 zip ties. And your bike might not have 2 zip ties. I put those there myself to keep that secure. You might have a little bracket with we call them Christmas trees, but it's just a little panel fastener that plugs into these holes and holds the wires in place. But I've got those zip ties and I'm going to cut those. Now we can get our wires down and we can unplug the main harness. And that's a lot of wires for the tour pack, but you've got a light and a power plug inside the tour pack, plus your brake light, plus 2 big speakers. So it seems like a lot of wire, but there's a lot of stuff in there. And now, I think this is a squeeze connector, yep. Squeeze this little tab on the back of the square part and unplug the antenna. And now, we can take this heavy son of a bitch off. Just like that. And lay it on the bench. So, tour pack's off. We got this big wire to deal with. In order to deal with that, we have to remove the seat. So, on this, there's no screw or nothing on the back of the seat. And these wires, in the book it says to just tuck them into the back of the seat. They will not tuck into the back of the seat. You have to remove the seat and pull them through from underneath and tie them up. So I'll show you how to take the seat off, but I'm not going to actually pull the wires through and all that. I'm going to put the seat back on and put the trunk back on. We need our 6mm again, and we're going to take out this bolt, take out this bolt, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side, and it's this bolt right here. And then to actually remove the seat from the bike, there's actually a stud inside the seat underneath. So you gotta push it back, and it'll pop up off that stud. And then you can come back and pick your seat up and pull all your wires through. I'm just going to leave my wires where they normally live. And put my seat back on. So now, put your seat bolts back in. And they can be a pain in the ass to get lined up. If you're trying to watch this with your kids and I cuss too much, I apologize. I try not to, but I can't help it. It just comes out. I like to push the seat forward and make sure it's nice and seated at the front. And I'm not going to tighten this all the way until the other one's in. So it's just touching that bracket. It's not threaded all the way down. And now we'll put this one back on. And underneath the seat, there's little hooks that hold the wires so they stay where they're supposed to be under the seat and don't get pinched or chafed, and I like to make sure they're in their little hooks. Now we can tighten them because they're both so we can tighten this one. And that's tight enough. So if you have removed your saddlebags completely, you can probably wait to put the side covers back on. So I'll also wait to put the side covers back on until last. But now we can put the trunk back on. So I grab my trunk. And I want to make sure my brackets in the front are on the spools. Nice and centered. And they're not. There we go. This thing is pretty heavy. It's probably 40 or 50 pounds. So if you're kind of a smaller person, you may want an extra pair of hands for this. But now it's sitting on the front spools, and I'm not going to push it down yet until I hook my wires back up and get them zip tied in place. So these just push together. This has a little notch, a little barb on one side and a little push button on the other side, so you make sure those two are lined up. You can't really mess it up because it's keyed, so it'll only fit one way. Push it all the way on until it clicks. And the antenna is the same thing. It's got a little barb on one side, and this side is kind of round on one side and square on the other. Little barb goes into a slot in the square side. You push it until it clicks and make sure they don't pull back apart. And then up here, way up underneath, there's a little plastic hook that these want to hang on. So I'm going to take a couple of zip ties. I'm going to thread them through these holes. And I'm going to slide my wires up here. zip tie, thread it back through this other hole at the front of this little bracket. And then do the same thing with the other one. There we go. Hope my head's not in the way. I hope you can kind of see what I'm doing. And I'm going to get that positioned where I want it, so it ain't going to chase or rub on anything. Pull them tight. And I'll show you a little trick with zip ties. If you take your cutting pliers and grab it close to the little buckle and sort of grab the zip tie and twist, it'll pull it nice and tight. And then chop it off. And those are nice and secure, and they're back in their little hook, so they shouldn't rub on the fender, but they probably will. I don't like water spots. But anyway, now those are back on, so we can grab spools are on all the way. And they're not. Yeah, they are. Carbon bar, pull straight down. Trunk snaps down on. Push your levers down until they click. And if you were leaving your little locking bolts out and your bags were already tight, you'd be done at this point, but I'm not going to leave those out because that trunk's too expensive to risk somebody walking away with it. I'll take my little bolt, and they're just little. I'm going to put a little drop of blue Loctite on it. There we go. Now pop these back out. And if your bags are empty and you just want to drop these in the bottom of the bag, that's a nice safe place for them. And if you want to take your bags off, just make sure you got plenty of room on your bench and some towels laid down to set them on. I'm just going to very carefully get this started back in here. You might have to pull the little lever down a little bit to get it to go. It's probably easier if you remove the bags. And I've got this bag resting on my knees so it doesn't fall off and pull the wires out. Glad I washed the bike so I could get sweaty arm prints all over my bags. to snug that down pretty good so that it won't fall off or vibrate loose. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and wipe off any dirt and crap that's on my chrome. I'm not going to wipe the fender. You can't get back there when you wash it if you leave the bags on. But I'm not going to wipe the fender because I don't want to scratch it up. It was a little dirty back there, but that's all right. Now I'm just going to wiggle my bag back into place. The bags rest right on the muffler, so I like to just let them rest on the muffler so everything's going to be lined up and properly and everything. So it sits how it's supposed to sit when I tighten it down. And you want to try, if you've got the bag lights like I do, they're just on with double-sided tape, so you don't want to try and lift the bag by the light. You want to grab it at the bottom and lift it by the bottom. That'll stay. While I put this back on. Sounds like the other camera quit on us. So we're probably running out of time for this one to overheat. And these just need to be snug. There's a rubber pad back here, so they're not going to vibrate loose. That rubber is going to absorb any vibration from the bike, and just tight enough that they're not going to fall out and they're going to hold the bag on. But you don't have to crank them down so tight that you can't get them out again. And that's tight enough. There is a torque spec. I'm not going to look it up because it's probably too high. So now we can shut our bag and put our side cover back on and do the same thing on the other side. Side covers go on pretty much the same way they came off, only the opposite. And get it lined up nice and get your little pins in your grommets. And you just push until they snap into place. So once again for the second time, just unthread these bolts. Lean this guy down. So just a little drop of Loctite after I blow the dirt out of this because it was in the bottom of my seat. That's probably more than necessary. See if I can suck some of that back up. There you go. Just a little drop. Doesn't need a huge amount. This stuff works pretty good. Blue Loctite, not red. Don't use the red Loctite on these. You'll never get them out. Swap sockets here. And tight enough that it won't come out with fingers or vibrate out. But you don't have to crank it down super, super tight. Wiggle that back into place. I guess I gotta scrounge up a little rubber end for that spool. Maybe that'll help with the bag leak. Because there's a small puddle in the bottom of this bag from having washed it a few minutes ago. So this bag's all back on. The other camera just overheated and shut itself off because it's hot out here. One more trick that'll make things easier. You can spray a little bit of silicone spray lube on these grommets, and it'll make it easier to put your side covers on and off. When they're new, they're nice and soft and it's pretty easy. But after a couple of years, they kind of harden up and they don't go on and off as easy. And a little bit of silicone spray lube will help that. And we just carefully line up our pins. Push our side cover back on and we're done. So there it is. That's how you remove and reinstall the trunk on an Indian Pursuit. Just wanted to add one more little shop tip for you. Old towels are great for covering gas tanks, bag lids, fenders, whatever, to protect it while you're working on the bike and make sure nothing gets scratched or damaged. And you always want to have a supply of shop rags around. These microfiber towels are what you should be using to wipe anything on your bike. These cheap pink rags that you can get at the parts store, they will scratch your paint. They're pretty harsh. They're good for checking oil and cleaning up oil spills, but they will scratch your paint. So try not to use those on paint if you can help it. And always check your rags and your towels before you put them on the bike or before you put a piece of the bike on them to make sure there's no kind of debris stuck in them. Any metal shavings, if you do any welding, grinding, cutting, drilling, anything that makes chips or metal shavings in your shop, make sure there's none in your rag so it doesn't scratch up the bike. And that stuff will not come out of a rag or a towel once it's in there, so just throw it away if it gets in it. Because you're not getting that stuff out in the washing machine and you'll wind up scratching up your bike. So just another little helpful tip for you if you want it or didn't know. Yeah, so that's it. Have a great day.